Greetings and welcome to another River Radio Sports Central podcast, along with Matt Varney from 103.5 ESPN. I am Darren Kennard. And Matty, we've kind of been in a countdown mode here as we close out the 25-26 athletic seasons, down to the final 2 weeks and the final couple of 2-3 state championships on the line.
Yeah, and I mean the big one obviously is what we've got our eyes set to at this point is softball happening this weekend, and we've got a pair that are going to be happening this weekend, and that's why we're doing this on Wednesday instead of Thursday, because they've got games tomorrow. So, but we're looking forward to that, both for Waltonville and for Carterville.
And, of course, you throw in Oakville as well, and somebody that's right there in the Cahokia Conference, not that far outside of, certainly not out of our reach. And so that will be 3 semifinal games on the docket tomorrow because, again, they're doing things a little differently this year because all 4 softball state championships are the same weekend. So the schedule is somewhat reminiscent of the basketball in the 4 classes. So the 1A and 2A semifinals are both on Thursday. 1A will be at 10 and at 12:15. Oakville plays at 10. Waltonville Sesser plays at 12:15. And then the afternoon session will be the 2A. And Carterville plays the second semifinal, which is at 4:45 scheduled.
Right.
We know how that goes. Difference between softball and basketball is they don't play the third place games that night. So the third place games will come back on Friday, and they will actually be played the same time as the 3A semifinals. They have multiple stadiums there at the Louisville Slugger Complex in Peoria. All 4 championship games will be on Saturday. And again, for Waltonville Sesser, it's, first of all, making state any time is a big deal. But when it's the very first time, just what a tremendous, accomplishment for this group of young ladies. And to do so, they had to go through pretty much the gold standard here in Southern Illinois. You know that if you're going to make state, at some point you're going to have to get through Casey Westfield, perennial power, and they hadn't been able to do so. They lost in the Super last year to Casey. They had lost 3 straight times to Casey, but they got it figured out at just the right time. Yeah,
and I mean, like you said, the right time couldn't happen at a better time. This Waltonville team is rolling on all cylinders. They've been building to this for several years. Their pitcher has been fantastic for not just this year, but for several years prior. But you kind of need all the pieces to fall into the right place to beat a team like Casey Westfield. Or there's been times in football where you look at a field and you're like, oh, man, we lucked out because this team got beaten by someone else or they're not in our field. For especially 1A, you generally know who's going to be kind of standing in your way. And so Waltonville sat there and said, we knew this was going to happen. They've been trying to get over the hump. They finally do. And just a bunch of elation for that program. They get 2 more games guaranteed.
Yes.
But for the Spartans, they know the work ain't done.
Right. And Alyssa Shanebuckler, you mentioned the pitcher, she had the big hit as well, a 3-run double in the second that got them on top. And I felt like that was enormous when you haven't beaten a team to jump out to an early lead, and then they were able to keep them at bay the rest of the day. She's been great. She's, Coach talked about what a great kid she is, and she just, she's a bulldog in the circle. And the interesting thing about WSV is Shane Buckler's a junior. There's only 1 senior on that whole roster. And so this is a team that, no matter what they do this weekend, you can't sit there and go, oh, well, they'll be back. Right. We know how that works, that best laid plans. But it is one of those deals where this is a young team, and, man, the experience that they're getting now, and they're just – I don't want to say playing with house money, but you've set a school record. You're going to come back with a trophy. Why not go win the whole doggone thing?
You might as well at this point. You just had such a great season. And, again, as we said, you don't know if you're going to be back. So that's one thing. But if you really want to put people on notice and maybe have them saying, yeah, they'll be back, go win that trophy right there. Shane Buckler is one that, again, her name has just continually come up for several years. Since she was a freshman, we've been hearing about her. We've been seeing just the work that she's put in and done. This is well-deserved. And, they're young. They're going to probably be a tough team next year as well. and go deep. But yeah, the question is how deep. You never can count on making it to the Final Four. And so, like you said, it'd be better to just go out and win the whole darn thing.
And again, with Oakville on the other side of the bracket, the opportunity exists for an all 6-1-8 final. And we know there would be great gnashing of teeth in other parts of the state. Oakville just beat Waltonville Sesser here a couple weeks ago in the regular season, which obviously that would have no bearing per se.
Right.
But it also just kind of shows, again, that level of softball in the South. To be able to, even though Oakville ends up going north and west for their postseason, you have that potential ability to have that as a final. That again speaks to the quality that we see, whether it's 1A or 2A.
Yes, without a doubt. As we've said before, softball's kind of the hidden gem of Southern Illinois. If you're not watching it, if you're not going out and enjoying it, you're missing out on a whole lot. There's a reason why Taylor Seifert at John A. Logan and Jen Sewell at SIU are looking at a couple local prospects every single year. It's because they know what they've got in their own backyard. You might as well recruit your own backyard. So they've just done a fantastic job in terms of the entire area, and to be able to see two potential teams from the local area to be potentially competing for a first place trophy, heck, even a third place trophy. I would hate to see it happen that way, but for the chance to, first of all, you got a 50-50 shot of them ending up one of them ending up in, but if nothing else, you got a shot at one of them bringing home at least bronze. That's not too bad right there.
No.
But so we'll see what goes on Thursday without a doubt, but it's shaping up in terms of the 1A landscape to be a really good weekend no matter what for Southern Illinois.
And Oakville also, this is the first trip to state for their softball. They've obviously had tremendous success in the girls basketball program, but this is the first one in program history for softball. On the other side of the coin, so to speak, is the Carterville Lions, who, not that it ever gets to be old hat, but this is their third consecutive trip to state. They already have 3 state titles total, and then, a second place finish last year. That second place finish last year, talking to some of the players, that's been the fuel that has really driven the engine here. I mean, look, they are super talented.
Yes.
And their lineup has produced at various points up and down. Offensively, it's been kind of interesting to see how different parts of the lineup have exploded at different times, and that's really kind of that team aspect of it. It was, okay, you now got one person that's hitting 500 or whatever. But again, it all starts with Carterville in the circle.
Yes.
And you have Cadence Phillips, who's going to the U of I. You have Taryn Ford, who's going to Wichita. Phillips has just been ridiculous this year, and I jotted down some notes so I would get them right. This season, she's 22-0 with a .11 ERA, giving up 5 runs in 131 innings. Only 2 of those have been earned.
Wow. That's amazing.
Now, in the postseason, Carterville has outscored opponents 43-0 in their 6 games.
Yeah.
As far as Phillips goes, 26 innings pitched, obviously no runs, 4 hits and 5 walks, so only 9 base runners allowed in 26 innings, and she struck out 56.
So good.
That's more than 2 an inning. So, I mean, mercy. That sets the table right there.
Well, I mean, when you go back 2 years ago, Taryn Ford was the ace, and then she ends up having her injury that really set the table for Cadence Phillips to come in, and it wasn't necessarily birth by fire, but it was, hey, we need you to really step up in her junior season. And she delivered on that. Taryn came back later in the season, but it was still kind of you're still healing, and Cadence is rolling, so we're gonna keep going with her. And it makes me the dominoes that fell for them to get here. That Taryn Ford is fully healthy and can do what you need her to. If you need her to pull back to sophomore year, she could do that. But they don't have to have her out there. They have Cadence Phillips out there just doing her thing, and as she stepped it up last year when they needed her to, and somehow she's found another level to go to this season. It's been crazy, and they've got a 1-2 punch in both Phillips and Ford that it really looks like Carterville should be, if nothing else, playing on Saturday.
And they, you mentioned that sophomore year. I mean, they were 1A, 1B.
Yeah.
I mean, you really just didn't know who was going to be the one. And then, by necessity because of injury, Phillips took over that number one spot. And then Ford's been, she's coming back off a serious injury.
Yeah.
And so she's had to kind of get back in the flow. But again, what this does, I have seen enough of these games in the postseason, especially at state, that end up being marathon type games. That to have a 1B or another arm that can come in that's you're not wondering, okay, what am I going to get today? Right. That is a huge luxury for Will Cappy and company.
Yeah, without a doubt. And it's yes, the lineup has maybe had some moments where you're like, when is it fully gonna click one way or another? But the great thing, as you said, is just that there's no really weak point in the lineup. It's okay, so-and-so's being held down today. Well, that's going to open things up for this other person over here. And it's just kind of like they're lying in wait. They're willing to be patient. If it's going to take until the fourth or fifth inning till runs are scored, they're fine with that. They know that the time's coming, and they know that in the circle they've got, again, Cadence Phillips there, and then if she falters for whatever reason, Taryn Ford's right there backing her. It's just the depth on this team is unbelievable. You don't see it too often in terms of how deep this team goes. And there just does not seem to be a weak point.
Right, and you've got 4 seniors that are signed to play college, 3 D1.
Yeah.
Colby Bennett, the outstanding catcher, is going to Logan and will eventually go D1. Yeah. You're almost certain of that. And again, Kendall Hendrickson, in the sectional final, has a triple and a home run and drives in 4. And so Phillips, who struggled early at the plate, she's been their hottest hitter. Ford leads the team in home runs. Savannah Gibbs not only plays an outstanding center field, but she's batting cleanup, and she's a force. And again, just up and down the lineup. And what's interesting to me is the way other teams approach them. Say Carterville gets a runner at third with less than 2 outs. Well, with Phillips in the circle, I don't know that I can give up a run.
Right.
So they bring the infield in. Well, what does that do offensively? That gives your hitters better angles to get through. And I've seen them been able to capitalize on that a couple of times here in this current postseason run. And again, so just the mystique, kind of weighs over the situation, but the 2A field is loaded. I mean, they have Williamsville in the semifinals. The other semifinal is Seneca, who is another team that's very accustomed to being at state, and Brimfield, who may be the biggest threat up there. I mean, other than to Carterville, and so I think it's going to be a very interesting weekend for sure. And man, it'd be awesome to have 3 playing on Saturday.
It would be fantastic, and that would hopefully mean it would guarantee then at least 1 first place trophy coming back, and at worst then 2 second place trophies.
Right.
It'd be great if we had 2 first place trophies coming back to the 618. But you got to play them.
Right, absolutely. And again, it wouldn't be one of our podcasts without the discussion of weather. I was looking at the forecast. Hot and humid Friday and Saturday, 50 to 60% chance of thunderstorms. Now, again, with that facility, they have multiple fields. They have lights. It has turf. Yeah. So, they will wait this thing out as opposed to maybe previous years where we've seen rain wipe out a final day or a trophy day or cause the third place game to be shortened.
Yeah. So it's good that in terms of we've adjusted the scheduling for not just that the weekend, but also for the other sports, and that now you're going to see the dividends paid hopefully, and so it's. Yeah, we can wait this one out, and if you gotta wait to Sunday for whatever reason, they have called it on Saturdays. They don't like playing on. It's funny because I don't think we need to do that. Is all I'm saying.
Well, yeah, I hope that's not the case. I mean, I think they'll burn the midnight oil if they need to. But again, that's probably another topic of why we see Chicagoland sports play on Sunday, but anything else doesn't go. So with softball being this week, that means baseball is a week behind. We start sectionals today at Goreville. It's the host Black Cats taking on Sparta in the first game. Edwards County taking on NCOE, who is, we talked last week in the pod about baseball being chaos. NCOE comes away with a regional title as a 7 seed, and so they are they're talking about playing with house money. So now you're in the sectional with 3 teams who probably felt like they were going to be there or had a great chance to be there, and then there's NCOE looking to spoil the party again.
Yeah, which kind of feels similar to the boys basketball sectional in a lot of different ways, and so it's one that definitely is intriguing, if nothing else. Goreville Sparta should be a really good game. But yeah, that Edwards County NCOE game right there is definitely sitting there. Both of them, I think, sitting there being like, we're trying to play spoiler. Obviously, Edwards County a little bit higher up on the seedings, but they're probably sitting there saying, whoever we get coming out of this, we'd like to make sure that we take down the favorite from it one way or another.
Right, and then when you look at the 2A, when you're talking about it's at Benton, and again the surprises continued with the Benton 2A sectional. Not surprising that Harrisburg is there.
Sure.
But when you looked at Massac County upsetting Carterville in the Carterville 2A regional final, a 1-0 game in that one. And so it'll be Massac and the host Rangers. Benton wins the Mount Carmel regional by the fact they beat Carmi, who was a 10 seed in the championship game. That'll be the second game, Massac and Benton. The opener, Harrisburg and Pinckneyville, who beat upstart Heron to win at DuQuoin. Heron had upset the top seed DuQuoin at DuQuoin. So maybe some teams here that if you would have looked at beforehand in this section, that probably isn't the foursome that you would have put forth. But I think it's going to make for a very interesting sectional.
Yeah, that's how I would describe it. I looked at it this morning before sportscasts and everything, just to make sure I had the information right. And no, not necessarily the ones that you would have coming out of the field said these will be the guys. But you look at it and you're like, this looks like 2 really good games as well. Especially that Harrisburg Pinckneyville game right there. That looks like a barn burner. But then Massac County and Benton, they're both a little upstart-ish, and you sit there and say, man, it again, kind of both looking at it and being like, we don't feel like it'll be an upset either way in this one, but we know coming out of it, we're going to have a team that's going to be considered kind of the next level. It's a lot of fun right now, and we're going to have kind of the cream rise to the top, if you will. But right now, you kind of get to enjoy kind of those last-minute Cinderellas, and if one of them can actually go on a Cinderella run, go to a super sectional, that would be a lot of fun.
And, of course, semis both today. The finals will be Saturday. The winners of the sectional finals advance to the SIU super sectional, which will be Monday night. And, of course, you'd have to think Harrisburg, as the lone 1 seed left, would be the favorite. But, again, that's really proven a non-factor, and not just here. I mean, I've seen this in the scores. There's a lot of 5s and 6s and an occasional 7 and a 10. And
that's baseball, baby.
Yeah, I mean, this year it's been a little more exaggerated, I think. Also this weekend we have the Bass Fishing State Tournament. That is in Shelbyville. We have several area teams that qualified out of the Lake of Egypt sectional a couple weeks ago. So hopefully the weather will cooperate for them and they can get that in. And they have a first round on Friday and then the final round on Saturday. And then, of course, next week will be the last week of baseball, and that'll be the end of the spring. But before I leave that state conversation, I want to kind of go back to last weekend, the boys state track. And we had 3 individuals win state championships, and we had one of those, Joseph Friedrich of Carbondale. He won the discus with a throw of more than 180 feet, and that was part of a big day for the Terriers, who ended up bringing home a 3rd place trophy as a team.
It's huge.
3rd place in 2A. I mean, there's only 3 classes in track, so that is a massive span of schools. And you're talking about kind of a who's who among track. And for Carbondale to come away with third, that's a big time performance.
Huge right there. Obviously, Big Joe right there doing what he does. Man, he's a name that a lot of people are starting to notice in Southern Illinois, and by the end of football season, they will almost all certainly know. But in track, yeah, he's no slouch either, obviously. And for the team to do that, just it's one of those things that track is easily ignored unfairly, and so for them to come back and get third place, bring home a trophy, that's a big deal right there.
Well, Cahokia gets second, Carbondale gets third, and Marion gets eighth. So 3 South 7 teams in the top 8. So huge performances for our area teams. In 1A, we had a couple individual state champs. Landon Mitchell from Christ Our Rock Lutheran won the 110 hurdles. He also finished second in the long jump and second in the triple jump. That young man scored 26 points on his own. Christ Our Rock Lutheran finished 6th as a team because of him.
It's awesome.
He finished 6th, for crying out loud. Now, had he won all 3, which he was really close to doing, they would have finished 3rd. They would have trophied because of him. I mean, that was, would have been one of the great individual performances that we've seen. I remember back in the mid-90s, I believe it was Pena had a young man named Babatunde Ridley who ended up going, he was a heck of a running back, but he was also a track star. Ended up going to U of I believe, but he won 4 events. I think it was the 100, the 200, and then both jumps. So he scored 40 points on his own, and at state, that's an incredible number. But again, congrats to Landon Mitchell wrapping up a tremendous career. He's going to Indiana State, where he's going to be a decathlete, and you can see why with the versatility there. And then our third state champ was Keelan Crawford from Flora, who won the high jump. And when I was talking to him afterwards, I was like, so was this something that you expected to be able to compete? And he's like, man, I didn't even start this season doing the high jump. So you think about what he has been able to accomplish this year. He just started kind of, the coach said, hey, I think you'd be pretty good at this. Great call, coach, because not only is he pretty good, he jumped almost 6'8", which was, I think it was 6'7.5" or 6'7 3/4 to win. 6'8" was his personal best, school record, obviously. But then he's just a junior, and he was a wide receiver on that Flora football team. And I asked him, I was like, man, what a year for Flora, huh? I mean, and in particular for that young man, so congrats to him.
That's awesome right there. And so, I mean, sometimes Coach actually knows what he's talking about. That's the message here. Sometimes you should listen to Coach. He or she might have an idea about what's going on here and where your strengths might lie. And so, I mean, obviously it's going to sometimes go the opposite direction in those things also, but listen to Coach. Every once in a while, they might have a good idea.
Yeah, well, I mean, and here's the thing. It wasn't like this was, maybe a down year and maybe 6'4". Right. I mean, I say that like 6'4" high jump. But, I mean, for state, I mean, he's jumping 6'8", and not like a guy that's gone to a bunch of camps or something. And I mean, this is just kind of off of raw ability. I would, and again, not knowing what the training regimen is, but again, this isn't a somebody who's done this all along. And I'm perfecting my craft. And I mean, when I watch them, and they measure out a certain thing, and you got to get the steps right. And I mean, it's yes, you got to have the God-given ability, but the technique is, and again, you're talking about, hey, we're going to jump over, essentially, we're going to jump over a dude that's 6'8".
Yeah.
I mean, that's nuts to me.
It's like Tim Duncan was a swimmer,
right?
And then in college or senior year of high school, whatever it was, coach came over and said, why don't you try? And went on to be an NBA. Sometimes Coach knows what he's talking about.
That reach at 6'11", you better be way out in front of him. So
yes.
Well, getting ready to head to state for this weekend for softball. Again, we'll have baseball sectional finals this weekend, the Bass Fishing State Championships this weekend, SIU Supers 1A and 2A will be on Monday, so there'll be plenty of baseball here close to home. And then if we have more local teams, they'll be headed to Champaign for the state tournament next weekend.
Yep, we'll be looking forward to it, and we would love for that to be the case. We've got the Sika All-Star Game coming up also a week from Friday, which we'll be broadcasting on 103.5 ESPN. And we've talked about, if there's a team up there, then no Darren Kennard on the All-Star Game. But I think we would rather there be a baseball team competing for state Friday night, or, well, that'd be a third-place game. But nonetheless, we'd rather you be upstate covering a team competing for state rather than being on the broadcast for the All-Star Game.
Yes, that selfishly, that would be the better answer. But anyway, well, that's going to do it for this River Radio Sports Central podcast. For Matty V, I'm Darren Kennard. Have a great weekend, everyone, and we'll talk to you again soon.